Welcome, folks. As you come in from the waiting room, we're going to hold for just a minute as everyone files in. All right, just waiting as people file in from the waiting room. Coming up on 200 participants. Very excited to have you all here. Great. Let's get started. Welcome to our fourth webinar for the Global Meetings Events Industry Day. This is the EIC Sustainability and Social Impact Committee's Sustainable Event Standards Open House. My name is Marshall Bradshaw. I'm a member of the EIC staff. Before the session begins, I have some important housekeeping notes for you. First off, this presentation is being recorded and will run approximately 1 hour, including question and answer time at the end. It will also be available afterwards on the EIC YouTube channel, and all attendees watching live today will receive CEs, which will appear on your account within 1 week of today. Attendees can listen to the webinar through their computers or by dialing in using the number and passcode provided by the Zoom software. We will also welcome you to utilize the closed captioning function. You just click on the CC button at the bottom of your screen to find the link to the live subtitles. Now, if you have questions at any point during the presentation, you don't have to wait until the end to submit them. We encourage you to submit your questions using the question and answer panel, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. It's separate from the chat, but feel free to say hello in the chat before entering your questions in the Q&A panel instead. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. That's it for the housekeeping notes, so I will hand it over to the EIC CEO, Amy Calvert.
Thank you, Marshall. Well, welcome everyone. So great to be with all of you. Kudos for making time for this connection and this collaboration. I want to thank all of you very much for making time and your support of EIC. And I also wanted to thank this incredible group of panelists and professionals, many of whom have been doing great work on behalf of the industry for a very long time as it relates to this particular topic. And I love the idea of an open house. So thank you and well done. So as many of you know, EIC is a global federation of organizations that are doing fantastic work every day to support the global business events industry. The conversations that we're hosting this week are really centered around how do we take the learnings from this past year and really strengthen and showcase our resilience and our relevance. And we are, as an organization, very, very committed to not only our members, but supporting all of the global business events professionals, the 26 million individuals that work in our industry day in and day out to create these amazing experiences and telling our best story. So thank you again for being here. I did want to share a little bit with you about our principles for recovery, and it really speaks to how we came up with this notion of really having purpose-driven programming in honor of Global Meetings Industry Day. I think, as I said, what we've learned over this past year is there's tremendous opportunity for the business events industry to tell its best story, not only around our direct impact, but our ability to be a catalyst for change and to strengthen our resolve to really sort of double down on this notion of aligning with our values and supporting the sustainable development goals. So we developed our principles for recovery. And, I think the first one, of course, is the need, as we've seen, to have a global citizens mindset. We are an industry that's inextricably bound and to our humanity and to the things that we suggest that we do to create great experiences. We must be really broad and accepting in our thinking. And I think more than ever, we know this concept of well-being really matters, right? Not only of the issues around equity that a global health crisis and a pandemic such as this has suggested, but the fact that we have an obligation as individuals, as participants, to think about our own well-being and how we commit to that as professionals, but participants in the events ecosystem, and creating a really great environment for our workforce, right? Thinking about not only about what do we need now as it relates to upskilling and reskilling, but how can we inspire individuals that are just beginning this journey to come into our industry and to make a real strong and lasting commitment to helping us advance and grow. And these are all really tied together and so important when I think about, the work that we did as a federation almost 18 months ago now to really think about our vision and our mission. We decided that, the appropriate place for us to be living, if we are the organization that is to champion the industry through advocacy, research, professional standards, and recognition, to be an industry that really promotes the economic impact of events on the communities that we support and we build. So I can think of no better way to do that, to be sort of anchored to these principles as we are inspired about all of the things that we're seeing relative to our ability to come out of this stronger and more united and more committed to the things that we know matter. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our fantastic moderator today, Claudia Van Heulenaar, who's been a leader and a volunteer champion of EIC for many, many years now. I want to publicly thank you for your leadership and your great work, and for being here today to lead this conversation. And with that, I will say to all of our participants, really make this a collaboration, ask those great questions and raise your hand and enjoy this next hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. That was very nice. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And Amy, I loved how you pronounced my last name. So wonderful. So hello, everyone, wherever you are in the world. So I would like to introduce you first, our wonderful panelists here, really with a broad experience that we are coming with you today. So let me introduce them one after the other. So first, I would like to introduce Roseann Collymore, co-chair and event organizers from the Standard Task Force. Roseann, could you raise your hand quickly? I mean, we have the names, but we want to make it like assuming that we are sitting here together. Thank you. Stephanie Jones, Senior Director, Conferences and Education, Water Environment Federation. Thank you, Stephanie. And Mariela McIlwraith, which we all know, thank you, from the Events Industry Council. And Gail Murphy, Meetings Director, Gail Murphy, CEO, Global Green Events. Gail, hello, Gail. Hello to Malta. And Sarah Patterson, Meetings Director, Public Housing Authorities Directors Association. Hello, Sarah. Nice to see you. And last but not least, Yalmaz Siddiqui, and Chair, EIC Sustainability and Social Impact Committee and Vice President of Corporate Sustainability of the MGM Resorts International. So nice to have everyone together. So, and with this, I would like to go to the next portion. And the thing is, we want to start now first with some polling questions. So if I would ask you, please, here, Colleen, I guess. So where you are on your sustainability and social impact journey, and probably you take some moments to just read through the questions and just pull in whatever feels best for you. And we'll see that, so that should be very interesting to see, because we have over 200 of people here from all over, and it would be nice to have an indication where we are with our participants. So let's give it a few more moments and for this. And how are we doing, Colleen? Yep, perfect. So as we can see here, where you are on your sustainability journey, we have many navigators, explorers, just getting started and wanting to learn how to improve events and business with sustainable practices. So this is just wonderful, because I think this will be a very, very rich hour for you. But we also have many explorers and practitioners, so a mixture in between, and also some good practitioners who have been already implementing sustainability in either their events or in their organizations. So yes, so with this, we'll close this one, and then we'll have another poll for you. Which it would be great to bring up the poll. So this one is around where do you see are the biggest enablers for sustainability and social impact? And so here again, that would be also interesting to see what your thoughts on this one, on this poll is. And Okay, so then yes, let's have a look, Colleen, where this is going.
I'm going to give it just one more moment, because we still have people participating. So just one more moment, and then I'll share the results.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, great. Where are your biggest challenges? Senior level support for sustainability programs, and the knowledge and capacities for sustainable practices. And yes, also client requests, yes, and funding. These are also have been accompanying us for many, many years. But interestingly, the leadership support or senior level for the programs is key to sustainability programs. Thank you so much for these indications and thoughts for this. And so with this context, I will also come over to you, Yalmaz, to start with this idea of purpose. And we in the committee, in the Sustainability and Social Impact Committee, have been working the last couple of months on a new strategy with a new vision and mission. And it would be really fantastic if you can elaborate the background and the storyline from where we are coming from with the standards. And maybe just as a background information, we have been going through a very deliberate process with a team, with consultation within the team, with a design thinking process, which has been very iterative, we can say. And so Yalmaz, I would like to give over to you, and so to elaborate on this one. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Claudia. First, I'd like to thank all the participants for coming today and listening and engaging with us on this important topic. And thank you, Claudia, for pronouncing my name correctly, as you did in the introduction. And also thank you for really, in many ways, being the visionary behind what we've done in the Committee for Sustainability and Social Impact, the visionary for stepping back and saying, what is the committee trying to achieve? What is our strategy? What's our vision and mission? And really allocating a lot of your own personal time and energy to this step back as we prepare for the next 10 years of work for the Sustainability and Social Impact Committee of EICs. So one of the first aspects of developing a strategy is to be clear on your vision and mission. And the other thing to really think about is, how does the vision and the mission of a subcommittee of a larger organization ladder up to the vision and mission of that larger organization? So the larger organization this Committee for Sustainability and Social Impact sits in is obviously EIC. And so we deliberately considered, what is EIC's vision, and how does sustainability and social impact, and therefore the committee working on these topics, contribute to that larger vision? So the first point in terms of the EIC vision of enriching lives and driving economic growth through the power of events, we built on by saying, as EIC helps drive economic growth by leveraging the power of events, we in the committee and the practitioners around sustainability want to accelerate the adoption of both environmental, which is the historic understanding of sustainability, and the equitable set of strategies to ultimately create a society where people, planet, and economies thrive. So we sort of built on and layered additional detail to the vision. Similarly, on the mission, where EIC is the global voice for the business events industry on these 4 notions of advocacy, research, recognition, and standards, so we as a committee, and therefore the practitioners focused on sustainability, want to inspire the event industry to advance the umbrella goals for the world, these sustainable development goals, through these same basic ideas of advocacy, research, with some slight nuanced guidance, and then education. So that's the background on the first phase of our strategy work. And then we also really wanted to take a step back beyond vision and mission and say, what are our goals and what is our direction for the next 10 years? Under Claudia's leadership, we're near the end of that work, and we will be sharing publicly what the strategy is, what our proposed goals are, what our plan is for advocacy, research, guidance, and education. But in parallel to that, that's a sort of 10-year exercise. In parallel to that, we recognize that standards are really an essential aspect of our future work. And we wanted to continue our work on the standards while this strategy work is unfolding. And the reason standards, for those, I mean, there's a lot of folks on this, a lot of participants who are relatively new to sustainability and social impact in events, as the poll showed. And the reason we want to focus on this notion of standards is that standards are, in effect, definitions of what we mean when we say something like sustainability and social impact. And sort of without standards, the complex notion of what is sustainability or what is social impact is kind of either hard to grasp or based on individual perspectives or decisions. And so as a committee working on strategy for sustainability and social impact, we really wanted to hone in on the standards as a key part of our work. I've also said the word phrase social impact a few times without necessarily clarifying it. And I think it's important to share why we want to include the notion of social impact. For those of you who know the history of the word sustainability, you might recognize, or you might realize that it is actually a concept that includes environmental matters, social matters, and economic matters. It's 3 pillars: people, planet, profit. But we recognize that for many, it's the default definition has become the planet or the environment, or even plastic reduction. They think sustainability is plastic reduction. In truth, sustainability is a much broader notion, but partly to recognize the sort of intractable reality that people think sustainability is environmental, we wanted to add the notion of social impact to remind folks that we are ultimately talking about protecting people and supporting people as well as the planet. Okay, so let's quickly go back to the definition of sustainability within the context of an event. Is it enough for an event to use recycled paper? Is it enough for an event to have a gender balanced panel? Is it enough to give away reusable swag? Like, is that enough for an event to be sustainable and supporting social impact? And the answer's partly correct, right? But is it enough? And so what the world has developed a method to resolve these questions of definitions and what is enough, and that is the idea of a standard, right? So a lot of introduction to the notion of standard. And the ideal method of the world has developed is that there's multi-stakeholders and public input to the standard development process. So if you've been following the event industry for a while, you'll know that back in 2012, the Green Meetings Industry Council, GMID, did actually develop the Apex ASTM standards for environmental sustainable events. And, we've acknowledged the really important and critical work done by Amy Spazzano, who I think is on the call, and Sue Tenish and many others, and many others who helped on the standards. But from 10 years after those original standards were developed, we are now undertaking a process to really reflect on what we've learned over that journey. And our goal as a committee, and we're going to start this conversation now really, is to ensure wider adoption of the standards, and with an increased focus on the social dimension of diversity and inclusion, accessibility, community engagement, etc. There's really more criteria related to the people aspect. So I'll conclude by saying that one of the things we want to do with this new standards development process is find the balance between credibility and comprehensiveness and understandability and ease of use. And we are attempting to thread the needle so that there's more adoption of credible standards for our industry in the years ahead. So back to you, Claudia. Hopefully that was helpful context.
Thank you, Yalmaz. Absolutely important context, because as we have seen in the polls already, we have practitioners, we have explorers, so we have everything, and probably not everyone is really aware of the whole context and also the standards themselves. So that's why also the audience, just addressing to the audience, I see questions are coming in, and we will see along as we can go to go back to your comments. So thank you very much for your engagements, and keep the questions really coming in. And so Mariela, over to you now. So it would be really great if you could give us a short update on the standards, what they are, and what proposed structure changes we are having for them as we go along. So that would also then make this what Yalmaz was saying in giving it in the whole context. So over to you, Mariela.
Thank you so much. So the Sustainable Event Standards, they're a suite of standards, and we currently offer 4 levels of them, from bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And a couple of years back, we did a pretty significant upgrade or update to these standards to make them much more flexible, to incorporate quite a bit more on social considerations. And we also really wanted to make it a little bit more adoptable, add more guidance, and make it just a little bit easier to understand. You know, one of the things that we focused on with the last revision was to really think about what was it that we were trying to accomplish. And it is in part to get people certified, but it's also about giving people a pathway forward, guidance in order to know how to go about achieving the goals that they have related to sustainability and social impact. So if we move to the next slide, that resulted in the development of a suite of standards. So there's an event organizer one, as well as 6 supplier categories in accommodations, AV and production, destination, exhibitions, food and beverage, and venue. And so we had a group of over 100 different individuals from around the world helping with that revision, led by Amy Svetrozano and then by Chance Thompson. And the steps that we developed with that are the principles for sustainable events. The first thing that you do is you become an endorser, and that helps to set the stage. Stephanie Jones is going to be talking about that in a couple of minutes, so I won't go into too much detail. Then we set a list of industry-wide criteria, and these are 13 items that are must-dos. Everyone in all sectors is required to complete those before moving forward. And then we have sector-specific criteria, and finally, the opportunity to gain additional points through innovation and exemplary performance. Part of the way that we incorporated flexibility is to allow for it to be a point-based system. So the more points that you achieve, the higher the standard. And on the next slide, suppliers and organizers are assessed in slightly different ways. So suppliers on organizational management, air quality, climate, community, water, energy, waste, marketing, communication, so on and so forth. What I want to focus on next is really, what are we looking to change? What are some of the big things that we found through the last year and a bit, which has been they've been released with a provisional status to allow us to get more feedback from our community. So some of the things that we've heard and are leading to some recommendations are shown on the next slide. First, we wanted to give a little clarity. The event organizer standard is likely to be renamed to the event standard. We do have additional resources for event organizers themselves through our Sustainable Event Professional Certificate, but the way that the standard is written is really to assess the event itself. The other area that we're looking to change is having an integrated property standard for those fantastic venues that have meeting space, accommodations, food and beverage, all under one roof. We're also looking at streamlining things by having a single source for the supplier standard. So currently, if you were to bring them all together, there's about 400 items that spread across all the supplier categories. We're looking at making those much more consistent across the board, which will help to make it easier for us to provide tools and guidance to support individuals and organizations in achieving the standards. Gail's going to be talking about the next one, which is a question that we have around the philosophy of waste management. But we also are going to be looking at what we currently are listing as community and really broadening this. So it could evolve into community and social impact or social impact. But we do recognize that we started with what was primarily an environmental standard and broadening it to look at areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, health, and safety. So we are looking for additional contributions in those specific areas. And finally, we're looking at consolidating areas of energy management, air quality, and climate action. So that's a big, broad overview of the proposed changes. We're going to be going into some more specifics, but I'll pass it back to Claudia.
Thank you, Mariela. Thank you. Yeah, this is really a whole word per se. And so as we go further, now we are coming, before we are coming to the standards, actually, we will be now passing over to Stephanie to talk about the principles for sustainable events, which are the entry door to, to all the path towards certification within the standards as well. And maybe just a few, just also give you a small context to this. So these principles for sustainable events came together also in a multi-stakeholder process. Back in 2018, it began in Frankfurt at IMEX, where really leading events and tourism industry corporations, organizations, individuals came together to really talk about this and to really come out with these four areas here that you will see that Stephanie will be going more into detail. And also important for you also to know as these principles, as you can see, yes, they are attached to the Sustainable Development Goals, but also these principles are a culmination of the already standards that are out there. For example, the former APEX ASTM standards, ISO 2012-1, and the Austrian Eco Label, and many others more. So this is really an intense work that went into this one. And so just to, that way it was important to give you that feedback as well. And so now with this, over to you. And the question for you here is, you are a signatory also of the principles for sustainable events, a real endorser. So it would be great if you can share with us, for us here, the four sections which make these principles together. So I would give over to you, Stephanie. Where are you, Stephanie? Over to you. I think you're on mute. Stephanie, you are on mute. You have to unmute. Yes, thank you.
I'm unmuted now. I apologize. That's the saying of the year for all of our Zoom meetings. So thank you, Claudia. I recently became an endorser of the principles in 2019. If I had to rate myself based on the poll, I'm somewhere between an explorer and a practitioner. So my plan was to certify my annual conference in 2020 as a sustainable event, but of course, COVID interrupted those plans. And for myself, like Yalmaz said, when I thought of sustainability, I really thought it was just about the environment, but digging into the principles and becoming an endorser made me realize that it's so much more. So, again, the 3 pillars of sustainability are people, planet, and prosperity. And these principles just allowed me to broaden my perception. So let's talk a bit about what the principles are. And I think for me, the principles really focus on areas of partnership, the environment, that social impact that was mentioned earlier, and of course, economics. The first principle is that organizers and suppliers share the responsibility for implementing and communicating sustainable practices to their stakeholders. As an event organizer, I think we need to start looking at who we partner with when we are designing our events and when we are sourcing our events. We have every right to require that our partners have these practices in place and that they're willing to be transparent and share them with the organizer, as well as make them available to our customers and members. I can't tell you how many times we've gotten dinged via social media about some type of sustainability issue that was happening at our conference. I've really seen a shift, and maybe you all have too, in that our customer base is expecting that sustainability is part of our events. So we need to be really proactive and share what we're doing. The second principle addresses the environment, and it includes conservation of resources like water and energy, carbon emissions reduction, and responsible purchasing. And for us event designers, there are several simple things that we can do to help support this principle. We can offer an option to purchase carbon offsets on our registration forms, or what's really easy is to source locally. A food and beverage can be sourced locally, printing your materials locally. That will really address this principle. The third principle relates to the social impact of sustainability. We're talking about human rights, community impact, health and wellness, and of course, there's several other considerations that fall within this principle. But as supporters, or as a supporter, we need to make sure that our organizations, and again, our suppliers, have policies in place that protect human rights and advocate for social justice. There's things that we can do to train our staff to look for signs of human trafficking. We travel a lot, we go back and forth across the country. So training our staff to look for these type of things is something easy for us to do. We can also give back to communities that we impact. One way to support this principle is to organize a community service project or donate to a local charity. I know lots of us have pins and tote bags and all types of giveaways left over. Let's donate them to a local charity or a local school. And we can also partner with our CVBs or some of our suppliers. I'm sure they will be happy to help out with these types of efforts. The fourth principle is supporting a thriving economic practice. And we can do that through collaboration and partnerships, equitable economic impact, transparency, and reasonable governance. So, you may say, so what does this really mean? So from my perspective, it's asking my suppliers, my venues, and the cities where we have these meetings, if they have sustainable policies. What is their DE&I policy? As the convention center or the hotel, what practices they have in place to conserve water and energy. We need to make sure that we include these types of questions in our RFPs and make them a part of our site selection process. I think ultimately we have a responsibility to make sustainability a part of our core business strategy. It's something that needs to be woven within our business strategy. because if we fail to assume this responsibility, we will continue to see these impacts on the global environment, on inequality and social injustice, quite honestly. And I think my last comment here is that as the industry moves forward to recovery, let's use our collective strength, let's use our economic might to bring others along with us on our sustainability journey. I think it's important, and it's something that we should really be endorsing. So when you get a chance, check out the standards and sign up as an endorser. Back to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for your call. Absolutely. So for those, so really the questions are really coming in. So we'll see where we put them in, because they are very, very good questions from many out there. And but for now, I would like to transition from the important principles, which hope gave you a really good overview of what this is about, and that it's really a broad context in which we have to think. And so one of the things now we are looking next to is the proposed shifts in the standards, as Mariela outlined them. And we really hope also in a moment our audience participation for this one. And now, Gail, we are switching over to you and talking about the one of the shifts we are proposing. And this is the shift in mindset from simply formally just waste management, if I may say so, towards materials resource management and circularity, all of these new expressions. And so it would be really, really helpful if you could give us a small overview on what that all means. And then after that, we will go into a polling to see what resonated with you most. So Gail, over to you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Claudia. It's really, I feel really grateful to be here and talking about my favorite subject, which is the difference between kind of waste and our opinions around what we deem as waste. So really, waste is stuff in the wrong place. It's a catchphrase that's been spread around. So waste management implies that we're dealing with the outputs of a system, so that we don't really have control over what's coming in, but the waste management is focused on the outputs. What can we do with the things that are coming out of that system that would maybe going to landfill? Can we do something different with that? Can we reduce it with the outputs of the system? So what we're inviting with this name change is really a change in behavior, a change in mindset around how we think about how we're running our events, how we're running our organizations that run events. Are we considering what we're putting into the system? So to shift the mentality from the outputs more into the inputs themselves. So what resources are we using? So every item that we're using, and as we all know, our industry is very heavy on consumption. So it's heavy in all different sectors, some of which are under climate action, some of which are under the different sections of the standards. And this is really a point where we're speaking more around the resources that are coming through as materials. So the materials that we're using, how do we reduce, how do we consider what we're bringing into the system in the first place? So really to focus around reducing what's coming in and treating everything actually as a resource, because everything that we have on this planet, and right now this is really important to focus on the fact that resources are finite on this planet. And as we know, we're getting to this stage where this has become a very hot topic. So to shift the focus more into the resources that are being used, the materials that we're choosing to use, the things that are coming into the system, and then also the circular loop. So this piece around circularity has started to come up in the conversation, circular economies, the circular loops. So this isn't just about individual products. This is all about our operational systems, how we think holistically, not just dealing with outputs, but how do we consider the circle of what's coming in, how it's being used, how it's being processed, and then what's happening to it after the event. Is it something that can go back into the system? Is it something that can be donated or upcycled or reused? Or is it something that needs to be recycled or go to landfill? So it's really about choosing what's coming into the system and thinking in a holistic way about everything that we are engaging in. And this particular section of the standards is mostly around materials. So it's really about kind of the normal things that you would consider under here, kind of like, you know, exhibition booths, the paper usage, the hard physical materials that are coming into the system, and how we start to consider those without focusing just on what we do with them when we finish using them, but really encouraging a shift in mindset for the whole industry to stop considering just the waste. There's no such thing as waste. Waste are just resources, right? So in a perfect system, we would have everything separated and everything goes back into a circular loop after being used. So therefore there would be no waste. But to really focus on the fact that everything we're using, every way that we're dealing with things are focused around circular thinking, circular economy, circular usage, and focusing around understanding that these things are resources. And so they need to be treasured, you know, what we're considering, what we're using, how we're using it, the choices of the materials, and then how we deal with them afterwards. So that's kind of the understanding. Thank you for all the explorers and the practitioners that are coming into this space to get their heads around all these complicated ideas. But we really feel that this is an opportunity to make a big shift in mindset. So that's the reason for wanting to change from just waste management to some other new cool name where there's an awareness around this, the focus around circularity. Thank you, Claudia. I'll pass back to you so you can get some ideas from the participants. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Gail. So thank you very much. And I would like to add some things that so that what you're saying, it's really when we're looking at event design to really from the very, very early moment of the birthing of the event, which starts with the event design, to be intentional about what and how and why we design what for what outcome. So if we go in the from the very, very beginnings into this place exactly for what you're saying. So that's why this is so important. And also looking outside the industry, the circular economy is a really billion industry as well. So we are not working in a silo. So no, we are a whole system which is connected with other sectors, with other systems out there. So thank you so much, Gail, for your insight here. And now back to the audience, we would like to hear from you in a poll. If you could give us your view on a naming, how this could be named in the standards. After hearing Gail, what would feel most appropriate to you at this point of time today, now, knowing that for many, maybe it first has to sink in, but it would be great to have already a small indication on your thoughts on this one. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, we have here already all this new, revised, refined names, and so hopefully one or the other resonate with you. So Colleen, how are we doing? Is it good coming in?
Just one more moment as these answers still come in, and then I will share the results.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Okay, materials, resource management, and circularity and resource management are the top scorers for now. And then we have circular economy and waste and materials and circularity also kind of even. And waste management and materials and circularity. So this is really a very interesting thing because it's really about the naming, and we will take this back into the committee as we go along and consider it further. So thank you so much for your input, because this is always very, very helpful. So, and with this from circularity, as I may call it now, I would like to go over to Roseann Collymore. Hello, Roseann. And we will now be also talking about another thing that we are looking in the revision of the standards. And you originally also co-chaired the Event Organizer Task Force. And so this time now we are also embedding greater emphasis to a crucial, important thing, which is basically the humanity, the social side of everything, and the social impact, including equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and it's even broader than that. So with this, it would be great to hear from you. What are some practical ways you think we can design events to be focused not only on the formerly, let's put it this way, giving back kind of thing that was for many years the main thing, the main approach, but rather tend to going towards a transformational approach that results in sustainable and equitable change, an impact for the community where the event or where the event itself is hosted, or for the host organizer that can contribute to a place or a cause. Roseann, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. As Mariela mentioned, when we first started the revision process of the standards, we were primarily working with an environmental standard. I welcome that the revised standards have been broadened to include equity, inclusion, and accessibility, because I truly believe that we cannot have a conversation about sustainability without these components. While we did make progress in areas of accessibility and inclusion, we now have an opportunity to advance this even further. Many of the practices that were in the first round of revisions were focused on corporate social responsibility or community giving, but now we want to shift our focus towards transforming communities as well as giving. A good example of equity is to think about how we use local resources to address food insecurity in the communities where we hold our events. We can continue the practice of food donation where possible. However, to achieve equity and support a local economy as an industry, we can help by having policies that support local businesses, including those owned by women, minorities, and people with disabilities. Inclusion could be as simple as looking at a broad spectrum of an event to ensure that you have the widest representation possible. For instance, we can ensure that our presenters or speakers are diverse in age, gender, sexual orientation, disability, and ethnicity. If we recall what Stephanie shared on the principles regarding social and economic considerations, we have a wonderful opportunity to create better events and stronger, more resilient communities by evolving our business practices and ensuring that we have inclusive and sustainable events. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, Roseann. Thank you, Roseann. And I actually would like to have more conversation, but I know we are against it or with the time. So basically, I also the audience really encouraging you, send the things in. We will collect everything, and we will take everything into the next thought processes. So. Sarah, coming over to you now also. We are also rethinking the structure of the standards to have greater consistency across supplier sector, as well as to bring together climate action. And climate action, the energy and the air quality part under one category. And given the climate change is the greatest threat to the global economy, to the humanity, to the world, and it's really urgent, and it's deep interrelatedness with everything that we are touching upon, not going deeper into this. So rethinking the systems, which Gail also touched upon, and Roseann, actually everybody touched upon. So what are ways that events could improve their climate impact?
Thank you, Claudia. I'm just going to break that down as well into kind of 3 parts. First, I'll talk about the streamlining of the requirements, then combining up the categories, and then some practical ways that we can all implement those items at our events. So first, with streamlining the supplier requirements, we really appreciate all of those who commented during this kind of pilot period. Your feedback was extremely helpful. We had many similar requirements that were slightly different for different types of suppliers, and those are now all consistent across the board, as Mariela mentioned. This makes the standards more accessible and digestible, as well as being able to provide more resources, and therefore easier for our stakeholders to digest and engage with. And the Social Impact and Sustainability Committee is laser focused on adoption and moving this entire industry forward. So that is really a big piece that we are excited about. In terms of combining energy and air quality under climate action, just wanted to take a little bit of a step back. So climate action, for those of you who might not be exactly familiar with that term, as defined by the UN, is taking urgent action to tackle climate change and its impacts, which means reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 7.6% each year and limiting the global warming of the planet. So then we think about climate action, it's activities that help us move in that direction. So when we look at global emissions, things like transportation, energy use, food production, and waste represent a significant portion of those emissions. And all of us in the event industry know that as events, we contribute to all of those. When we hold a conference or a trade show, we're building an entire city and dismantling it in the matter of a week. So if you've joined this webinar, I'm pretty sure I don't have to convince you about the power of face-to-face events. And so our focus here really needs to be on mitigating emissions. The climate action in the current standard, pretty much all credits in the standard in some way support emission reduction. Air quality and energy management are very directly related to that. The committee had a lot of discussion similar to the discussion that Gail just led around waste management, circularity. We wanted to make sure this was very accessible and easy to understand, but also really impress upon people the impact of why these credits are so important and what they support in general. So current credits in this category kind of speak high level about minimizing transportation emissions and offsetting unavoidable emissions. Current air quality credits that could now come under this category really focus on human health and emission reduction and how those work hand in hand. So credits like enforcing a non-idling policy for vehicles, restricting use of vehicles powered by internal combustion engines inside the facility, that reduces emissions, but also encourages the use of energy sources that have lower emissions, maintaining cleaning air handling equipment and monitoring air quality, reduces energy use, and also reduces pollutants in the air. Providing bike racks, access to public transportation, electric vehicle charging, all of these encourage transportation with much lower carbon emissions, therefore contributing to this climate action movement. Energy management, our credits in that category, really reinforce that proper energy management will directly reduce emissions related to energy use. So reducing HVAC and escalator use during move-in and move-out periods, using LED lighting, generating renewable energy on site, energy tracking and monitoring, all of these things, again, we feel fall into that larger climate action category. And we wanted to leave you with a few other examples of how the larger standard really supports climate action as well. And all of these really relate to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals as well. So all of this kind of builds on each other and relates to one another. In terms of transportation choices, when you are planning an event, selecting the destination where air transportation requirements can be minimized. So are most of your attendees located in a certain area? Are there direct flight options? Is there easy public transit? Do you have a staff travel policy? And can materials be procured and produced locally? In terms of food choices, the standard awards points for reducing meat and dairy use and using vegetarian and vegan options. There's numerous studies that illustrate how much more carbon intensive meat and dairy options are as opposed to more plant-based options. I think the food industry in general, and especially the hospitality industry, has really come a long way in making alternatives available, making them enticing and exciting. So thinking about offering vegetarian vegan options at your events, fully vegan meals, or choosing to serve chicken or fish instead of beef, or some other options, in addition to looking at sourcing those locally. So we are very close to time, so I am going to turn that back over to Claudia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And actually to this topic, there is so much more to tell, and there are some interesting questions. Shauna, also, I see your question, and this is absolutely something that we also have on the radar in the committee, and we will address that so absolutely, thank you for your question. And now with a couple of minutes left, I quickly would like to give over to Mariela and to walk us through quickly what to expect in terms of the next steps of standards, and then head over to Yalmaz for a closing. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. So we're currently asking for all of you to help us out. One of the things that is really critical about the standards is that these are everyone's standards. They're not EIC standards. They're all of us contributing our expertise, our knowledge, our wisdom. The more input that we get from all of you, the better the standards will be. So right now, up until the 25th of April, it's just an open comment period. You can access our standards online and send us the comments, and I'll post the email address. It's very easy, sustainability@eventscouncil.org. So send us those. Once we have that feedback, we're going to open a public consultation period in May and June to give you more chance to see exactly what some of these recommendations are looking like. And then we're looking to do the final publication at sometime in July. But really, this is an opportunity for all of us to share our knowledge and wisdom. I can't stress enough just how much we value everyone's input. And the more you send us, the more we can get into these standards to make sure that they really are reflective of the future and current needs of our industry. Over to Yalmaz. Oh, you're on mute.
Yalmaz, you're on mute. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I'll just add, we're specifically looking for comments on the tools and resources that will help you, diversity, equity and inclusion, accessibility, digital events, climate action, and health and safety.
Thank you, Mariela, and thanks again for everyone who attended. Fine. Next slide, please, Colleen. Or I can just express it. Really, what we hope are three things from you. Please consider endorsing the principles. There's a simple link provided in the chat. It's not a certification on the principles. It's just you personally, your organization, endorsing the notion of principles, and there's no certification involved. It's just your commitment. Secondly, as Mariela said, there's a current set of standards that are being revised right now for release shortly for a formal public comment period. If you'd like to get your input into the current version of the standards, please feel free and submit to that website, sustainability@eventscouncil.org by April 25th. You can download them today on the website, and then be ready for this public comment period. Sustainability, that's a good catch. And be ready for the public comment period in the coming months. And then we'll finally launch for use in an event or in your venue for perhaps Q4 2021. And to really close, let's go to Emmy, please.
I think that was really a fabulous close, Yalmaz, to be honest. But really, my role is just, again, to thank you all for being here as participants. You did exactly what I had hoped. You engaged. It was a really rich conversation and really gave us a lot of great insights to carry forward. I do want to thank all of you for being here today, in particular, our amazing panelists for not only your great facilitation of this discussion, but the fantastic work you've been doing for a very long time to continue to advance this really, really important commitment that we've all made, right, to building back better and to really strengthening our commitment to sustainability and social justice. And we have an amazing ability to do that with the scope and scale of our industry. So to all of you, thank you. I feel very inspired. I'm sure we have more to talk about, so you'll be hearing more from us. We have on this topic, but also we have another session on some of the Apex work that we've been doing over this past year later this evening. And I again, just, this week is all about advocacy and being our own best storytellers. And I cannot think of a better way to do that than to convene a conversation around this topic. So again, take care, be well, and we will stay in touch. Special thanks to Mariela for your leadership, Yalmaz as chair, and to all of our fantastic committee members that were on this call today. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Amy. Just one final point. Commitment to respond to the questions afterwards in writing.
Will do. Yes, we will definitely aggregate all of that, all those fantastic questions, and be back with you with specific answers and follow up. All right, take good care, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
That concludes our webinar. On behalf of the Events Industry Council, I'd like to thank the Sustainability and Social Impact Committee one more time. And for live attendees, EIC will be sending you your CE within 1 week. This webinar will also be available for playback on the EIC YouTube channel. If you're looking for any more CE opportunities, you can access all of last year's EIC Advanced content on demand through our website, available starting April 8th. This webinar will now end. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.